Alrighty guys, I got lights set up for the headlights on the Dozer. How nice that looks, those fit perfectly. Just had to kind of modify the back side, and I ended up just sticking some washers in there. So those are ready to go in. We're gonna get them in. But first, I screwed up something when I did the rewiring. So I got the schematic here, let me show you what I did, and it'll be simple, easy to fix, but my mistake. Thanks to viewer Russell Baumgartner for pointing this out. Okay, so this is the electrical schematic. So it's not super complicated. It's also not a very good schematic though, because it wraps all these wires up in the loom, how they actually were, but you can't really see where everything's going. It makes it a bit of a trick to trace out, and I had forgotten this printed copy, so I was doing it just off of my phone. And so I just read it wrong. Anyway, alternator, voltage regulator, I called it generator. That's probably more accurate. In this case, in the actual part, this is mounted directly onto the back of the generator. So you can see it's this number 3 wire comes down and lands here. It's this number 1 wire that comes off and is supposed to land right here on the amp meter. Okay, now I landed this wire over here on the ignition switch, and they're right next to each other in there, so I should be able to just pull it off of here and land it over here. But if you remember, I noted that the amp meter was reading backwards. It was reading negative amps, and I thought it should have been reading positive amps. Well, this is why, because I was only reading the load. So in this case, with the battery being the reference point, negative would be from the battery, positive would be back to the battery, right? So if it's only reading the loads and it's not reading the charging amperage, then it will read negative, because it's only seeing the amperage that's coming from the battery to the loads, the lights and the gauges and whatnot. So move this wire here, it's number 1 wire, to right here where it's supposed to be. Then it will be reading the charging and the load amperage. So it should read a net positive at all times. And then basically what that means is everything's actually running off of the alternator, not really off the battery. And then the battery is just a charging load on the alternator. So anyway, we'll get that moved over real quick, and then we'll add those headlights, and that will be officially done. Yeah, so here it is. I just need to move this wire, and luckily I left myself a little bit of a whip there. Just need to move it from here to here, and then that will actually match the prints. You can see that jumps over to here for the battery supply to this switch. And yeah, then we should be reading. We'll confirm that. We'll fire it up and check it and make sure we're reading it correctly. And yeah, that ought to get it fixed. Alrighty, just like that, easy enough. Let's go ahead and start this old girl up. Please start, Dozer. And we'll get the headlights put on. Fuel pump sounds good. Still doesn't seem right. I think I should be seeing positive amperage. Well, let me have a look at that. I may need to land that wire on the other side of the amp meter. So let this run for just a minute. It hasn't rained since the last time I parked it here, and I'll get back to you in a bit. Well, I expected that to read positive amps, but I'm confident that's the way it's supposed to be hooked up. I had to think about it. This doesn't even make sense to land it there where I did, because this goes to the ignition switch, and so this is only closed in, you know, that switch is only closed in when you actually push the push button start over there. Otherwise the time this just goes nowhere. So that would not have charged the battery anyway. So that should be though. And then of course I've got the solar panel on there as well. So anyway, I'm pretty sure that's hooked up correct. And maybe since I've had the solar charger on there, the battery just doesn't need any charge, so it's not pulling any amperage. I guess that could make sense. But I don't know. Anyway, pretty sure that's right. So all right, on to these front headlights. So this worked out really good, I think. Hang on a second. Oh, those screws sticking out right there screwing me over. I cut those off because I was afraid they might hit the radiator. I didn't think about those ones hitting right up here on the well, just the front of the dozer. So okay, let me find a saw and I'll get those cut off. Alrighty, got those mounted up on there. I didn't show you guys any of this. Got this just kind of temporarily wired up. I'll run it through loom and shorten that wire there. If that's a good ground spot, we'll see if that works as a ground. And I still got to heat shrink everything, but I use these like spade connectors on the lights so that if one of them was to go bad, I can just unplug it and make up a new one. So let's try it real quick. Not on. These ones are. Okay, so must not be a good ground. Or I could have that backwards. Let me swap those. That was the other reason. So, you know, these are black and red and black and white, but the black may have been intended to be the ground. Sometimes they're marked. These ones weren't. So let me swap those and we'll see if it works. All right, yep, I got it. So black was ground, red was hot. That's all it was. Looks like that ground's going to work. So that does matter on LEDs. It wouldn't matter on an incandescent lamp what the polarity was, but LED stands for light emitting diode. And a diode is essentially a one-way valve for electricity, so it can only flow through there one way. If you hook it up backwards, it just does not work. So yeah, had the polarity hooked up. Like I said, they're usually labeled which one's positive and which one's negative. And I kind of knew that the black should have been the ground, but I was just matching up the colors of the wires. So anyway, though, that's gonna work. So cool. Lights all the way around the dozer. So this wire, black wire here, I'm gonna tuck into the loom right here and run it all the way up right here with this one. And then this white wire, I'll just cut it off shorter, put a new end on it, and or maybe I'll just zip tie it all up so I got some extra in there. I don't know, but anyway, I'm gonna tie all these up with zip ties and get them up out of the way so they can't touch anything that's rotating. We'll put the hood back on and we'll be done with her. Alrighty, there's headlights on the dozer. So pretty cool. The last thing I gotta do is put this grill back on there, but I've lost one of the bolts, so I gotta get a new bolt for that side, and I'll stick that on there. No big deal. Pretty cool though. I like it. And I think the ones on the basket case, my backhoe, they're the exact same, so I'm just going to get 2 more of those ordered, and we'll put those on the backhoe at some point and rewire it next. So cool. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.